Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Shri Kapila Muni Namaha. Sri Aurobindaya Namaha. I wanted to start this session by taking blessings of Ganpati, Ganesha, who is the source of all buddhi, intellect, and then the Kapila Muni, whose Sankhya philosophy we will be discussing today. He is considered as one of the incarnated souls who have inherited or not inherited, who have self-discovered, or he came down, he took birth with the knowledge that he accumulated in Sankhya philosophy. It is not something learnt by someone, it's generated from this insight into Prakriti and Purusha is generated, somehow manifested by Kapila Muni himself. It's a very massive phenomena, and obviously third, but not last but not the least, Sri Aurobindo, who has melted it down for us so that we can understand all this thing very easily in his massive writings of integral yoga. He has taken these names Purusha and Prakriti from Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is the one that defines Purusha and Prakriti. So that's why we are starting with Sankhya philosophy. So this lecture series, we will take the original scripture by Kapila Muni. I have a book with English translation printed with me. If you want to have a soft copy or a printed copy, maybe you can give the names at the end of the session, the reception, or you can also write it down here. And we will also, if we have time, we will also discuss the analogies which are written in numerous books by Sri Aurobindo. Mainly, the gist of Sri Aurobindo's writings is all about integral yoga. He talks about divine. So, integral yoga is all about divine and self and everything that is in between. We call it the metaphysical system, and supramental being is at the center of this metaphysical system. He talks extensively about involution and evolution. Well, Sankhya philosophy is all about, it breaks down the process of involution for us. So this supermind that he talks about, which is the intermediary power between unmanifested and manifested, I find myself with these sessions standing somewhere in between unmanifested and manifested, because we are trying to integrate something which is not there yet. Integral mathematics, understanding of mathematics through integral yoga. And this is a collaborative work, so your questions and answers are very much welcome. Now, what is this mathematics? I would like to call it a Ganita Parampara. Ganit literally means mathematics in Sanskrit. Parampara means lineage. This has been there since the beginning of, let's say, involution. First in unconscious form, and now very recently it has started to gain some kind of consciousness with the evolution process of a man. And through this mathematics, through this system of mathematics, through this true understanding of mathematics, the process of involution can be understood, can be executed, but it cannot be only with the mechanical power of mathematics. It requires the support of Sri Aurobindo's writings. It requires the support of integral yoga as we speak. So without dwelling into much into the introduction, I just wanted to say with the say that if we read the original scriptures that Sri Aurobindo had written or has read, on which the books are basically based, one of them is Sankhya philosophy. Then when we go back to those literatures, it makes the reading as an experience, at least for me, where what we are reading doesn't become teaching, it becomes something that we understand, that we experience in ourselves, and that's, I think, feels the most important aspect of this series, which we are trying to focus on. So let's start with a story, a small story. So once upon a time, when Kapila Muni was in his divine abode, he was there in the meditating, there was one Brahman who came to him, and this Brahman was troubled by all sorts of pains. Now we can categorize pain or sorrow in three categories. Pain that can be caused by natural calamities, something that is not in our hands, something that our emotions cause to us, whatever we feel, we feel jealousy, we feel anger, and that causes us a sorrow. So that is the pain that we cause to ourselves. And then there is a pain that can be caused by one's own body. You can call it a disease or an ailment, or So he was troubled by all these three types of pains, and he comes to Kapila Muni very troubled, and he asks him three questions, three very important questions. First question he asks him is, Kim aham param? What is of all things most important? The second question that he asks him, Kim yatha tathya? What is actual truth? And third question that he asks him, Kim krutva krutakritya syam iti? What must I do in order that I may have done what is fitting to be done? He doesn't pray to him to get him out of the sorrow. Very conscious questions, I believe. And the only answer that Kapila Muni gives is Kathayishami, I'll tell you. And then he comes with the next stanza where he explains what we call it as the aphorism of Kapila. You'll have to forget my English pronunciations. My Sanskrit pronunciations are much better, but try to bear with my English pronunciations. So here is the aphorism of Kapila Muni. He says, there are 8 producers, Prakriti. There are 16 productions that are caused by 8 producers. These 8 producers cause 16 productions, and we call them Vikaras. Then there is soul, Purusha. Purusha is a very different, soul is a very loose translation in English. Purusha is much more, the meaning of Purusha is vast than that. Then there are 3 gunas, there is a triad of qualities. Then there is a process of emanation or development, we call it sanchara. Then there is reabsorption, we call it pratisanchara. There are ministers of souls, we call it adhyatma. Each organ will have its own province, we call it adibhuta. Then there is Adi Devata, the respective presiding deity. For each particular organ, there will be a particular deity who is going to take care of it, or who is in charge of that. 5 perversities of understanding. Adi Buddhi. There are 5 types of intellects, which we will talk in detail. 5 sources of action, karma yoni. 5 airs, vayu. 5 which consists of action, karma atmana. There is ignorance, avidya, a very crucial, integral part of the truth that exists, and it can be described under 5 divisions. Then there are disabilities, 28 kinds of disabilities. We call it asakti. But there are also 10 kinds of radical facts that exist. We call it maulik arthaha, the gist of something, Then there is anugraha sarga, benevolent nature. There is bhuta sargaha. There are 10 descriptions of bhuta sargaha. That is, there are 10 types of, or 10 descriptions of created existence. Then there is dhatu sansargaha, parental creation, which are 3. They can be described in 3 types. Then there are 3 types of bondages, bandha, 3 types of liberation, moksha. There are 3 folds of proof, pramana. And then there are 3 folds of pain, dukkha. I think dukkha we already talked about. I can quickly give you names of 3 types of dukkhas. Adi bhautika tapam, that means the pain that is caused by your own body. Adi daivika tapam, that is pain that is caused due to natural calamity or something from outside surroundings which is out of your control. And adhyatmika tapam, the pain that you give yourself because of your own emotions. These are the 3 folds of pain. But today we are going to mainly focus on Prakriti. And if we manage to finish Prakriti today, we can also try to cover Vikaras, 16 productions. So that's today's focus. And in the coming lectures, we will talk about each of those bullet points that I have expressed in the last slides. So, what is Prakriti? I think Prakriti is not something one. That is what Kapila said. Even Prakriti comes as one. There is Prakriti and Purusha, and there is this distinct segregation between them, which is discussed and described in length in Sri Aurobindo's literature. Prakriti itself consists of 8 very important sections or parts. One of the first part of Prakriti is undiscrete, something that cannot be explained or seen, something that is beyond senses. We cannot. So the Kapila's Sankhya philosophy starts by explaining something that cannot be understood by human mind, and we call it avyakta. Something cannot be expressed, something cannot be understood, and it cannot be apprehended by senses. Why? Because it doesn't have all these characteristics which a human mind requires for its understanding. Usually we can understand something if it has certain shape or form, if it has certain smell or sound. Avyakta doesn't have any of that. If we can dismantle it into parts and study the parts, it doesn't have any beginning or middle or end. It is not made up of parts. It is continuous. It is something. A close explanation of Avyakta is darkness. That is as close as we can get to understanding what Avyakta means. It is inaudible, it's intangible, you cannot touch it. It's invisible, it's indestructible, it's devoid of any savor or odor. It doesn't have any characteristics of attributes. Very strange. Something that cannot have any characteristics is Avyakta. Usually one of the ways of understanding something is, what are the characteristics? One of the characteristics of Avyakta is doesn't have any characteristic. But yet, despite of all this, it is something that is eternal. It is firm. It is chief, it is pradhana, something that everything starts with. But it is also unconscious. It is not aware of itself, or it's not aware of its own qualities or existence itself. That which is the source of all, you cannot go beyond, you cannot segregate it, or you cannot trace it back to something. That is the place where you stop. It is the only. That's why it is also the common. It exists in everything that is in existence. It can also be called as a productive source. That's why its basic nature, its primary nature is to produce. It's not capable of producing, but its primary nature is to produce. That in which generated effect is comprehended. It's a very interesting sentence. Kapila Muni says, he talks about cause and effect theory. The whole Sankhya philosophy is about cause and effect. He says that effect is already hidden in the cause. It can be described as one of the probabilities, one of the possibilities, but cause is itself capable of producing the effect before it is ever produced. So that is what indiscrete is. But indiscrete can't do anything with itself. That's where the second element of Prakriti comes in a picture, which we call buddhi, intellect. Now this intellect can be understood. This is not a mental term, first of all. Buddhi is not something that can be understood by your mind or brain. It is something much vaster, much beyond that, something that talks about vidya, a truth, the true knowledge. This word signifies intellect, intention or intent. This comprises the whole potential of manifesting something out of avyakta, manifesting something out of undiscrete. By how? So this buddhi is divided into 8 subsections, and there are ways of manifesting, and we divide it into, and they are opposite of each other. So 4 which we might call it as positive, or 4 which go into negative or ignorant counterparts of it. First is virtue, dharma, and its opposite is vice, which is adharma. Something that is defined in shrutis and smritis. It talks about the way you should be living or thinking, these are the rules, the guidelines, and in a simple words, if I may try to explain, please note that all my explanation is going close to what actual buddhi is. It is not humanly possible to describe what Prakriti actually is. We'll try to go as close as possible. So there are some laws, again cause and effect. If you do this, this will be the consequence of that. And there are laws in shrutis and smritis written which will give you the consequence which will be supportive of your upscaling. Does that make any sense? In a way, because the whole process of Sankhya philosophy is to understand how the involution started. But the intention is how we can go back on those footsteps in the process of evolution, because we will have to cross those milestones. So dharma is one of the milestones, which is the way of being in order to uplift your scale of being. Vice is the opposite of that. That means not being conscious about the way of being and not being very worried about where you are. Are you upscaling yourself, or falling into a pit, or Second is knowledge, jnana. And this can be the easiest explanation that can possibly be understood. Just knowing these 25 tattvas. So the 25 tattvas is something that we saw in the slide. I'll just quickly go back. These are the 25 tattvas. If you calculate them together, these are 25 tattvas. Knowledge of these tattvas, knowledge of the actual truth, and knowledge of all the elements is what knowledge is. That's what Vidya is. Ignorance, which is also crucial, ignorance is not a negative term here. None of these terms are considered negative. Ignorance simply signifies the absence of knowledge of tattvas. And this can just take you away from the actual truth. So there is a truth, and the knowledge is one of the ways of proceeding towards the truth. Because even if we walk on the path of dharma, if we are walking without knowledge, because knowledge guides our consciousness. If we are walking without knowledge, then our consciousness is something we don't even know if we have the right consciousness, or are we going towards the truth. So ignorance takes place. Then the third buddhi is dispassion, vairagya. Vairagya is a quality, I would say. It is an understanding that equips you not to be worried about anything which is you're surrounded by. Being into something, but also being intact of any of the effects of your surroundings. That is the quality of vairagya. You are, for example, you are in a very toxic environment probably, but it doesn't cause you are disconnected from it somehow. You exist, but you neither repel it nor accept it. That is the quality of vairagya. Passion is engaging with it, having that back and forth, which will also have effect on a self. Then the fourth quality is power, which is explained as Aishwarya in Sankhya philosophy. If you translate Aishwarya, Aishwarya is a word, it's also in Devanagari, and Aishwarya literally translates into riches, being rich, but here in Sankhya philosophy, Kapila Muni translates it into a quality of power. Now what is the quality of power? Being mighty, huge? No. He expresses it as quality of minuteness. It is a power of having attention to such small minute details, making yourself as small as possible so that you can also pass through rocks. That's one way of explaining it. That is the kind of power that Kapila Muni tries to, his intentions are to explain that kind of power here in Sankhya philosophy. Not something that makes you strong and you can do anything. No. And powerlessness is incapacity of bringing yourself down to such minute level where you cannot pass. You feel that passing through rocks, passing through atoms is impossible. That's the quality of powerlessness. Now, four qualities: dharma, jnana, vairagya, and power. That means virtue, knowledge, dispassion, and power. They are considered sattvic buddhis or qualities, and the opposite one they come under tamas: vice, ignorance, passion, and powerlessness. Both hold the balance. None of them is good or bad. None of them is greater than the other one. They both form together. This bond is very strong, and these four bonds together, they form buddhi. Now why do we have that? Because this is the only way we can start putting start understanding avyakta, which is undiscrete, which is important in order to start manifesting something, because that's Prakriti's primary nature, to produce. But in order to produce something, you have to have a capacity of understanding it, and buddhi is the first step towards understanding it. But it lacks action, it lacks that push, that force, and that is the third characteristic, or that is the third section of Prakriti. But before that, let's quickly talk about the buddhis. So what is the cause and effect of these buddhis? Dharma, having an understanding or intellect of dharma, can support your urdhvagamana. It can support your scale of being, it can elevate your scale of being in the existence. Jnana or the goal of jnana is liberation, moksha. Goal of Vairagya takes you towards Prakriti Laya, or reabsorption into nature. Let's say, in a very simple terms or humanic terms, if you want to describe it, it's very easy. Vairagya is a quality of letting go, not being attached. And once you let go of everything, you're not attached to anything, then it becomes very easy to go back to where you came from. That's why Vairagya, it's very important this kind of buddhi is very important in this manner. And then there is Aishwarya. And Aishwarya, the goal of Aishwarya is Iya Pratihata Gati. That means unimpeded movement. Nothing can stop you. If you understand the true meaning of power, or Aishwarya, which is written here in Sankhya philosophy. It is the unimpeded movement which is required in order for you to keep moving on towards the truth. It allows you that movement which cannot be stopped. It gives you that power which makes you unstoppable. But not in a terms of, this is not an egoistic term. We need to understand that. Third of the 8 producers of Prakriti is the self-consciousness. And this is something that causes that stir, that motion, that, most required action. Self-consciousness. It is described as ahankara in Kapila Muni Sankhya philosophy. Ahankara, which can loosely translate itself as ego. Ego comes across as a very negative term, but here self-consciousness is something that is having the full awareness of, I am aware that I am aware. It is the conceit of individuality. Aham shabde, aham sparshe. I am the sound. I am touch. I am thee. Having that along with buddhi, you already have an avyakta, undiscrete with you, and then this starts setting things in the motion. The self-consciousness. We also call it, buddhi is mahat, and then there is your ahankara. So this mahat and ahankara, we'll try to, play with the avyakta, undiscrete. Because it's a play. You need to, what Prakriti does, she likes to create. She's tirelessly creating, Now Sankhya philosophy doesn't talk about what it creates, what are the possibilities. It only counts all the things from start and it segregates into parts. So self-consciousness is one of the first or the third integral part in the process of involution. So first there was undiscrete, avyakta, something that cannot be understood by human mind. Then there was buddhi, intellect, something that is capable of understanding. And then there was self-consciousness, which is aware in itself. Now one of the very important quality I see of unconsciousness is it is independent of inference. Nira anumana. What is anumana? Anumana is something, there are some facts and you make your opinion based on those facts. Self-consciousness, your ahankara, is independent of that. It is something that comes before that. So it is not something, you cannot have facts and based on that you can understand self-consciousness. No. It is the origin of all the bhutadi, all the elements. It is something where the elements are originated from. And it is the modifying factor. Without that, nothing moves ahead. Any questions still here so far?
What do you mean by undiscrete?
Undiscrete means something that cannot be understood. If you want to simply understand it, have you studied algebra in mathematics? So x is your undiscrete. Yeah.
And so this one is discrete. The amakara. This would be discrete.
No, this is not something that is discrete. These are the factors which will go toward. We have not reached up to discrete yet.
Okay.
These are the factors which are the next steps of. So there was undiscrete. Let's say there is empty space. There is a void. There is nothing there but darkness. And then there was an understanding of the darkness. And then there was awareness that you exist in that darkness. So nothing is manifested yet. Just these qualities are there. Now we are moving towards the rest of the 5. We call it tanmatras, which wouldn't have been manifested without the self-consciousness. It's only because of self-consciousness is now we are able to move forward. Now these 5 tanmatras are very simple to understand, but yet it has a very vast meaning out of it. We try to comprehend it in the words. Element of sound, shabda. Element of tangibility, sparsha. Element of color or form, again loose translation, rupa. This which is something that supports objective understanding into us. Element of savor, rasa. Element of odor, gandha. So that is your prakriti. These all, including these 3 factors, something that is undiscrete, avyakta. Then there are buddhi, which comes under 8 forms. Dharma, adharma, that means virtue and vice. Knowledge and ignorance. Then there is vairagya and avairagya, which is dispassion and passion. And then lastly, there is aishwarya and anaishwarya, power and powerlessness. And then there is self-consciousness. And because of these 3, now we have come to tanmatras. The meaning of tanmatras is tad means that, matra means alone. Now there is a very interesting shloka which I would like to read on tanmatras. I will read it in Sanskrit, but I'll also translate it. Let's talk about the first tanmatra, shabda. Yes. What is the shabda tanmatra? Something that talks about udatta, anudatta, swarita, kampita, shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Pancha, Avaidha, Nishada. Now these are all basically, if you have any knowledge in music or if you have studied Shastriya Sangeet, Indian classical music, you will know these words. Basically it talks about the qualities, something that can be actually assented or gravely assented, something that can be circumflexly ascended. These are the qualities of sound. But sound itself is devoid of these qualities. Sound has these qualities, but it's like saying this is orange, this is for rupa, for color or form, you say this is yellow, this is orange, this is white, but color itself is devoid of these characteristics. So these 5 elements are devoid of these characteristics. Sound, sparsha, rupa, these are the capabilities to segregate your understanding in auditory or tangible understanding or objective understanding. And these are the tanmatras. Any questions so far? Does it? I know it's very bit confusing to understand at this point, but this is what Prakriti, the whole of the Prakriti can be comprised with. Prakriti is not just one term. It's not a feminine term. I mean, it sounds like a feminine term, but Prakriti is something that is creating. And why it is creating for? For Purusha, which we will talk about probably in next session. Purusha is something which is very different from Prakriti. He just likes to observe, and reflect on a pure mirror. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. But Prakriti does all the work of creation. It is the only executive or working force. The power behind the Prakriti is Shakti. Shakti can come down as buddhi and self-consciousness, with tanmatras. It is the Chit Shakti in manifestation. Chit Shakti. Can we draw a parallel to probably Avyukta? That is the spiritual consciousness. Sri Aurobindo says it in Letters of Yoga too. So this is so far about the Prakriti. If we have time, we can stop for questions here, and next time we can talk about the Vikaras, 16 productions. Otherwise we won't have time for questions. Your choice, or if you want me to continue, I can go on.
Did Muni use the word involution?
Sorry?
Did Muni use that word involution?
No, he didn't use it yet. He didn't use it yet. He will, first at this point he is only enumerating the 25 tattvas, and we are on the first one. First he is going to define 25 tattvas, and at the end he will probably talk about involution and evolution. But that we have to find out at the end of the book.
Did you tell us the answers to these 3 initial questions?
We are in the process of, I'll quickly go back to the 3 initial questions. What is the actual truth? Yes, we are on the way of, that's what we are going to, that's the work. What is of all things most important? And that's the gist of the whole in Sankhya philosophy lectures. We will be investing our time in answering these 3 questions. What is actual truth? And right now we are in the process of answering the second question. What is actual truth? But
so, you told that story that the disciple came to him and asked him these questions.
yes.
But he didn't answer the whole philosophy in these 3 questions.
Sankhya philosophy is the answer to these three questions. That's all the book is. These three questions are answered, and and at the end he says, that's the truth, that's it. And just do this, and you know this, and you follow on this, and you will be free from sorrow.
It's very difficult to follow. Is there any practical advice?
I think it is difficult to follow because of the alignment. The buddhi, intellect, again, it's something which is capable of, it makes things very easy. If we understand this term buddhi correctly, these four causes, dharma, jnana, vairagya and aishwarya, these are the hints. Actually, have you heard about the exponential graphs in mathematics? I mean, my limitation is I can explain things in math only. I'm being a math teacher, but let me try exponential graphs for you. Exponential graphs are described with e to the power of x. And the graph goes something like this. There is your coordinate plane. Now we are able to understand, being a human, we are able to understand things only in three possibilities. Our true understanding of thing is only up to three. We know 4, 5, 6, but we know it. We understand, we truly understand only up to 3. That's why it's very easy to understand the XYZ coordinate geometry, you know. And e to the power of x goes something like this. There is your 0, this is your 1. If we say that this is where we are, completely ignorant, and this is somewhere where the truth is, then the struggle is only up to here. This is where we are stuck at. This, before even we reach 1, you see the upscale? It happens too much in a very short time. Yes. And there is also opposite function, which is the logarithmic function. So either you are going this way, so either the push is happening this way or this way. Rest is being taken care of. The initial push is the challenge. That's why we find it difficult, because we haven't reached that point yet. You will know once you reach that point. It's like riding a bike, no? Once you reach that speed, you don't feel you're moving. It's on a very high speed, but you're on autopilot.
There's this Greek philosopher who says that the flying arrow is itself complete motionless.
Yes. Yes, it's completely motionless. Completely motionless. We only feel the motion and difficulty. But there again, so these qualities don't work, the buddhi don't work independent of, like, it's not something that you can follow dharma or virtue and then once you become expert at it, then you try to follow jnana and gain all the knowledge. No, these are the simultaneous phenomena. Yes.
What is called Prakriti Laya?
Prakriti Laya.
Is it related to Pralaya?
No.
Because reabsorption of the entire universe to one single point. That's why I was wondering, so this world and Pralaya were related.
Well, Pralaya is a very big term, and I'll try to attempt to answer that, because as you can see, me sitting here, there is also still a lot of ignorance in me. So forgive me if I can't answer your question in a proper. But in my understanding, Pralaya is the necessary step, in order to, it's like just like birth and death. Reabsorption and Pralaya, the slight difference I feel is Pralaya is a phenomena. The scale is different, but Pralaya is a phenomena. Reabsorption is a process or a state.
The process of the soul returning to its origin. For example, after death. Is that what is meant, for example?
To some extent, yes. Let's say now the soul has manifested into a physical body, which has a vital being and psychic being. Once the soul exists the physical body, what happens to the physical body? We don't give it much of a thought. We feel that the only part of divine is the soul. No. The physical body also itself has to go back to the divine, and that is reabsorption. Having that realization that every cell of you is the reflection of divine. So your soul has, so everything has a different speed, no? Soul is supersonic speed. But at the same time, your physical body goes with a very, very slow speed compared to the speed of the soul, if we talk in these terms. But it is on its way, But how? Because all your emotions, all your vital, everything, all your memories, your karma, everything is there in your physical body. And that has to untangle, and that has to get reabsorbed. That's why it's very important to understand Vairagya. While the soul is there, you have time to practice Vairagya, so that once the soul exists, then the reabsorption, we wish that it happens quickly and faster. As fast as it can, obviously. Within the laws of nature, of course. But that's what Vairagya means. Pralaya, on the other hand, is something that is not happening on an individual level, I feel. It's a phenomenon. It's same thing but on an extremely massive level. But Pralaya doesn't only signifies destruction of the physical self, or Pralaya is on every level. It's on the level of physical, it's on the level of vital, mental, psychic. Everything. Pralaya is a term that goes beyond matter. And reabsorption is something that has a slight boundary of matter, I feel. Within matter, yeah. Okay. So, should we continue, or would you like to know 16 productions? Yeah? Okay, fine. Now what happens? Now producers are ready, they are ready to produce. There is undiscrete, there is buddhi, there is self-consciousness, you have ahankara, there is self-consciousness, and now you have 5 tanmatras. You have the element of sound in existence, you have sparsha, element of tangibility, element of color, form, savor, odor in existence. But now there has to be a production. What does it produce together? All these 8 subparts of Prakriti. It produces 16 Vikaras. We call it 16 productions. Out of them, 11 are the Indriyas, organs, and 5 are the gross elements. We call them Bhutas. Out of 11 organs, there are 5 organs which are dedicated to your buddhi, your intellect. We call it buddhi indriyas. What are these 5 organs? Let me try to fetch the list for you. Your 5 senses, to loosely understand: hearing, shrotra, twach, touch, chakshu, sight, jiva, taste, smell, ghrana. Now you have the elements, but you need something to experience those elements. How will you experience sound without the indriya of shrotra? Now shrotra, the only way we can explain it is by touching or showing our ears. But when I am saying, since you already have read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, please know that I am not talking about the physical elements of hearing and smell and jiva. All they exist on all the parts of being, on the vital, on the mental, psychic. These are called buddhi indriyas. They are something that helps you understand the tanmatras, 5 tanmatras, intellectually. Then there are karmendriyas, which are channeled by mostly your self-consciousness or ego or ahankara. They are called karmendriyas. They are more action oriented. There is vaka, speech or voice. Pani, hands. Then there is padam, feet. There is payu, excretion, something that is not needed, the act to take it out what is not needed. And then there is upasthakya, which is generation. Now what are the qualities of this?
Sorry, what does this mean,
Chakshu means quality of seeing or understanding something. Very easily can be understood by looking at something, and then it is the quality of objective understanding. Understanding something by its color, form, shape. So chakshu can also be translated literally in Sanskrit. Chakshu means eyes, having an eye for something, but not literally only the physical organ of eye, but beyond that. And then, sorry?
Thank you.
Welcome. And then the 11th very important organ, and Kapila Muni puts this under the organ, manas, your mind. So what do they do? What does your chakshu do? What does your granam? What does your seeing? What is your hearing? What do they do? Hands, let's say hearing helps you understand the different types of sounds, like if there is ascension in the sound, if there is modulation, change in any modulation of the sound. Then there is touch. It helps you understand if something is soft or hard or slippery, But I am only able to explain it on the physical level. We will have to put a bit more effort on understanding how it can work on vital and mental level. Then the quality of sight can help you segregate between the colors and forms. This is green, this is orange, and this is square, and this is circle. And we go on naming them. Now, these are the possibilities that is being created just because there is a indriya of chakshu, and then there is a quality, there is an element of sight or vision. Then element of taste. It helps you, what do you say, different types of taste. In Sanskrit, we call it, there are 6 or 7 types of taste, which is katu, tikta, kashaya, you know, madhura, amla, lavana. That means pungent or bitter, astringent or alkaline, different types of taste. But every time Kapila Muni says, he explains the whole thing and it says, but there is not hence any diversity in the subtle element of savor itself. Savor can be understood in a very diverse way, but savor itself, there is no diversity in savor itself. But there is not hence any diversity in the subtle element of savor itself. Yeah. Then manas, your mind, has only 2 actions. It is basically governing all your karmendriyas, buddhi indriyas and karmendriyas, but it is doing 2 things. It is either helping you understand and taking the information in, which is coming from karmendriyas and buddhi indriyas, or it is doubting those. Manas is doing both. That's the only work of manas. But it is governing of rest of the 10 indriyas. Then there are 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air and ether. And they are produced by the 5 tanmatras. 5 tanmatras are your sound, element of sound, and element of tangibility, element of odor, element of savor, and element of taste. When we combine all these 5 elements, sound, tangibility, color, savor, odor, we get our first gross element, which is earth. Earth has all these 5 qualities. It has the element of sound, it has the element of tangibility, it has the element of color, savor and odor. We exclude one and we get water, the second gross element, which has the quality of sound, it has the quality of tangibility, color, savor, but it cannot be understood or described by gandha, odor. And then we go one less, which is fire, which has sound, tangibility and color. That's the manifestation process of these 5 gross elements. Then just sound and tangibility gives you air, and just sound, one element, gives you ether. And these 5 elements are the basis of the material creation. And from here it's easy to understand. Now what are the characteristics of these 5 gross elements? Earth. The quality or characteristic of earth is as a supporter to all the 4 gross elements. It supports the actions and everything that the rest 4 elements are doing. Earth will always act as a supporter, element of earth. Water works as a moisturizing something, making something humid. Again, I am loosely translating it, but try to understand the quality of water. You are yourself made out of 72% of water. So can we try to understand the impact on our emotions, on the element of water in our physical self? Yeah. All the empathy, all the kindness probably comes from the element of water. Then there is light. Light or fire or Agni, what you want to call it, the main characteristic of it is maturing something, taking something to its level of maturation. Then there is air. It helps you with siccation or drying something. It works in opposite to water. And ether, which gives or allows space for all this to happen for all the rest of the 4 elements. And these are your 5 gross elements. And those are your 16 Vikaras. I would like to end with Sri Aurobindo's quote. He says, the Sankhya philosopher Kapila affirmed an original indiscriminate matter which evolves from Prakriti, from the eternal energy, is, we might say, its first state of manifestation. He has taken the name Prakriti and Purusha as it is from Sankhya philosophy, and he goes on explaining this. I have this book which explains the entire Sankhya philosophy. So the text is in Sanskrit. If you know how to read Sanskrit, that will be very lovely, but it's a very, again, ancient types of Sanskrit, so some alphabets are hard to understand, but there is English translation just below that, and there are about 12 pages I could take out from different books like the Life Divine 1 and 2, Synthesis of Yoga, Letters of Yoga, which talks directly or indirectly about Sankhya philosophy. So Sri Aurobindo talks about this. So if you would like to have the copy of that for your reading pleasure, I would highly suggest that once, if you are interested in this topic and if you are into reading Sri Aurobindo, you can revisit Life Divine one more time and try to read his passages, and maybe knowing the different subsections of Prakritis and its Vikaras will help you with understanding, a bit more, and that experience is really something beautiful, and I would like you to have that experience. So with that note, I think I will stop for today. I'm glad that we were able to cover 16 productions, Vikaras also, because now in the next session that leaves us completely free to understand Purusha. It's a very vast subject in itself, and in next, whenever you want to have session next, if you would like to come again, we can have this session twice a month or once a month as per your inclination, and we can talk about Purusha for 1 hour. Thank you for coming.